The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds sat in their seats and watched the center of the room. There, standing alone under the bright lights, was a single human woman. Ambassador Elena Vasquez kept her face calm and still. She showed no anger. She showed no fear. She simply listened as the High Speaker read the new law that would change everything for her people. By the power given to this council by all member species, the High Speaker said in a voice that echoed through the hall, "We declare that the human species shall no longer be permitted to build or own military vessels of any kind." A soft murmur passed through the crowd. Many of the aliens nodded their heads or made similar gestures of agreement. The Vethkai delegation, a group of tall insect-like beings with hard shells and many eyes, seemed especially pleased. All existing human warships must be taken apart within one standard galactic year. Council observers will watch this process to make sure it is done correctly. Any human ship found with weapons after this time will be destroyed, and the humans responsible will face punishment. Elena listened to every word. She did not interrupt. She did not argue. Behind her calm face, her mind was working very fast, but she gave no sign of this. The reason for this new law was simple. The Council was afraid. 6 months ago, a small group of human ships had fought against a much larger fleet from the Vethkai Dominion. The border between human space and Vethkai space had always been a place of tension. Small fights happened often. But this time, things had been different. A single human battle group of only 12 ships had faced 17 Vethkai dreadnoughts. These were massive vessels, each one the size of a small moon. Any other species would have run away or surrendered. The humans did neither. For 3 days, the human ships fought. They used tricks that no one had ever seen before. They hid behind asteroids and attacked from the shadows. They sent false signals to confuse the enemy sensors. They even crashed one of their damaged ships directly into a Vethkai dreadnought, destroying it completely. When human reinforcements finally arrived, 9 of the original 12 ships were still fighting. The Vethkai had lost 11 dreadnoughts. This scared the Council more than anything else in their long history. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 80 years. They were still considered a young species, primitive compared to races that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. Yet somehow, these young creatures had shown a talent for war that made even the oldest species nervous. The Vethkai had demanded action. They were one of the most powerful members of the Council, and they had support from many other species. The vote to disarm humanity was quick and one-sided. When the High Speaker finished reading, he looked down at Elena. "Does the human representative wish to speak?" Elena stepped forward. Her shoes made soft sounds on the polished floor. She looked up at the thousands of faces watching her, and she spoke in a clear, steady voice. "The human species accepts the Council's decision," she said. "We will follow the new law. Our warships will be taken apart. We wish only to live in peace with our neighbors." She bowed her head in a gesture of respect, then turned and walked out of the hall. The Council members looked at each other in surprise. They had expected the humans to argue, to fight against the decision. Many had prepared speeches to counter human objections. Instead, the humans had simply accepted their fate. The Vethkai ambassador made a clicking sound with his mandibles. In his language, this was the equivalent of a satisfied laugh. "They have learned their place," he said to the delegates near him. "The young must always bow to the wisdom of the old." Over the next several months, the Council watched with satisfaction as humanity kept its promise. The great shipyards around Mars and the moon Titan went quiet. The proud ships of the United Earth Navy were brought to special stations where they were cut into pieces. Council observers recorded everything. They watched as weapons were removed and melted down. They watched as engines were taken apart. They watched as the hulls of mighty vessels were reduced to nothing but scrap metal. The human workers did their jobs without complaint. If they felt sad about destroying the ships that had protected them, they did not show it. One observer, a young scientist from a peaceful world called Narathi Prime, felt a little sorry for the humans. He approached a human worker during a rest break and asked, "Does it not pain you to destroy your own ships?" The worker, a middle-aged woman with gray in her hair, looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled slightly and said, "We are not destroying our ability to protect ourselves. We are just changing its form." The observer did not understand what she meant. He wrote it down in his report as an example of human acceptance of their situation. His superiors read the report and were pleased. No one on the council thought to ask what the humans were building in the shipyards that had gone dark. No one wondered why so many human engineers had been moved to new facilities on moons and asteroids far from prying eyes. No one noticed that the humans had not stopped building. They had only stopped building the things that the council was looking for. Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned to Earth and met with the leaders of the United Human Alliance. They gathered in a secure room deep underground, where no one could listen to their conversation. "They took the bait," Elena said, finally allowing herself to smile. "They are so focused on counting our warships that they cannot see what we are really doing." The president of the alliance nodded. "How long until the first new vessels are ready?" 18 months for the first group. After that, production will increase quickly. "And you are certain the council will not recognize them as weapons?" Elena's smile grew wider. "They specifically banned warships. They banned weapons designed for combat. They did not ban tools that can be used in many different ways." She leaned back in her chair. "When we are finished, every ship we build will be technically a civilian vessel. Mining ships, cargo haulers, research platforms, all perfectly legal according to the treaty. But in reality, they will be the most dangerous vessels in the galaxy. The Council just does not know it yet." Outside, the stars shone down on Earth, just as they had for billions of years. But something was changing in the darkness between those stars. Humanity was not defeated. Humanity was evolving. And when the galaxy finally understood what the humans had built, it would already be too late. 18 months after the Treaty of Nexus Prime, a ship launched from the frozen moon of Europa. It was not a warship. At least, that is what all of its official documents said. The ship was called the Prometheus. According to the records that the Council could see, it was a heavy industrial vessel designed for deep space mining. It had a crew of 250 people. It had large cargo holds for storing minerals. It had powerful engines for traveling to distant asteroid fields. Council inspectors had examined the Prometheus 3 times before it was allowed to launch. They checked every room. They scanned every system. They looked for hidden weapons, for secret compartments, for anything that violated the treaty. They found nothing wrong. The inspectors wrote in their reports that the Prometheus was exactly what the humans claimed it to be, a mining ship, a perfectly legal civilian vessel. They were wrong. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched the stars through the main viewing window. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had spent 40 years in the old Earth Navy before it was forced to disband. Now he commanded something new, something that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. "Admiral," said Commander Sarah Park, his second-in-command, "all systems are showing green. The ship is ready for full operation." Chen Wei nodded slowly. "Activate the demonstration protocol. Show me what we can do." Commander Park gave the order. Throughout the ship, things began to change. The cargo holds were not really cargo holds. They were fabrication bays filled with raw materials and sophisticated machines. These machines could build almost anything, given the right instructions and enough time. In the first bay, machines began to produce weapons. rail guns that could fire metal projectiles at incredible speeds, missile launchers that could hold dozens of warheads, energy cannons that could cut through the strongest armor. In the second bay, other machines built ammunition, thousands of rounds for the railguns, missiles with different types of warheads for different targets, power cells for the energy weapons. In the third bay, construction robots assembled fighter craft, small, fast ships that could launch from the Prometheus and attack enemies from multiple directions at once. Outside the ship, the hull itself was changing. Special panels moved and shifted, revealing hidden ports where the new weapons could be mounted. The shape of the ship was different now. It looked less like a fat mining vessel and more like a predator preparing to hunt. All of this happened in less than 15 minutes. Admiral Chen Wei watched the display screens that showed him everything that was happening. His face showed no expression, but inside, he felt a deep satisfaction. This was what humanity had been building in secret. Not warships that could be seen and counted and banned. Something much more clever. Time from civilian configuration to full combat readiness, he said. 14 minutes and 32 seconds. We can do better, but this is a good start. Commander Park was smiling. The Council banned our warships, sir. They never thought to ban our factories. They think in straight lines, Chen Wei replied. They look at a weapon and see only a weapon. They look at a tool and see only a tool. They cannot imagine something that is both at the same time. He walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. These were the best officers humanity had. They had been chosen carefully for this mission. Each one understood what was at stake. We are calling these ships adaptive response vessels, Chen Wei said. The official name is boring on purpose. But among ourselves, we will call them by another name, shapeshifters. The name was perfect. Like the mythical creatures from old Earth stories, these ships could change their form to match any situation. A cargo ship when inspectors came to look. A deadly warship when enemies attacked. Whatever was needed, whenever it was needed. In the following weeks, the Prometheus was joined by more ships. The Anansi, named after a clever spider god from African stories. The Coyote, named after a trickster from Native American legends. The Loki, the Tanuki, the Maui. Each name came from human mythology, from stories about beings that used cleverness instead of strength. The Council continued to watch humanity. Their observers counted the new mining ships and cargo haulers that were being built. They noted that humans were expanding their industrial operations. After all, a disarmed species needed to focus on trade and commerce. What the observers did not see was the truth hidden inside each of those innocent-looking vessels. By the end of the first year, humanity had 30 shapeshifters operating throughout their territory. By the end of the second year, they had 80. The ships traveled normal trade routes. They carried normal cargo. They did normal mining work. Anyone who looked at them saw only what the humans wanted them to see. But deep inside each ship, the fabrication bays waited. The raw materials sat in their storage containers. The construction robots were always ready. At any moment, at any place, a peaceful civilian ship could transform into something deadly. Admiral Chen Wei was promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of all adaptive response vessels. He set up training programs in secret locations far from Council observers. Human crews practiced the transformation process until they could do it perfectly. They ran battle simulations against imaginary enemies. They prepared for a war that they hoped would never come. But they knew it might come anyway. The galaxy was a dangerous place. There were pirates and raiders who preyed on weak species. There were hostile empires who saw the disarmed humans as easy targets. There were the Veth Kai, who had hated humanity since the border war. Sooner or later, someone would test human defenses. Someone would attack a human colony or ship, expecting to find helpless victims. And when that happened, the shapeshifters would reveal their true nature. Fleet Admiral Chen Wei looked forward to that day. Not because he wanted war, he had seen enough war in his long life, but because he wanted the galaxy to learn an important lesson about humanity. You could take away their warships, you could ban their weapons, you could force them to bow their heads and accept your rules. But you could never take away their ability to adapt. You could never stop them from finding a new way forward. You could never truly make them helpless. The humans had a saying from their ancient history. It was spoken by a wise man when his enemies thought they had won. The saying was simple but powerful. You may cut down the forest, but the roots remain in the ground, and from those roots, something new will grow. The Council had cut down humanity's forest of warships. They thought they had won. They did not understand that the roots were already growing into something much more dangerous than what had been lost. The shapeshifters were waiting, and they would not wait forever. The planet Kepler 442b was a peaceful world. It was one of the newer human colonies, home to about 200,000 people. The colonists were farmers and scientists, builders and teachers. They had come to this distant world to start new lives, far from the crowded cities of Earth. The colony had no military forces. Under the Treaty of Nexus Prime, humans were not allowed to have military forces. There were a few orbital defense platforms around the planet, but these were small and weak. Just enough to stop small meteors from hitting the surface, not enough to stop a real attack. The Kreth Syndicate knew this. They had been watching the human colony for months, counting the ships that came and went, studying the defenses. The Kreth were pirates and slavers. They attacked weak targets and took what they wanted: people, resources, technology, anything that could be sold. Their scouts had reported that the humans on Kepler 442b had no protection, just some civilian ships in orbit. Fat, slow cargo haulers that would run away at the first sign of trouble. Captain Vorsk of the Syndicate fleet made his decision. 50 ships would be more than enough to take the colony. They would strike fast, grab what they could, and leave before anyone could respond. Easy prey. It was the worst mistake of his life. The attack came at dawn, local time. 50 Syndicate ships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began moving toward the planet. Their weapons were already charging. Their landing craft were ready to launch. In orbit, 3 human ships detected the incoming fleet. The Prometheus, the Anansi, and the Coyote were making a routine cargo delivery when the attack began. They had been planning to leave within the hour. Captain Maria Santos was in command of the Prometheus. She was a small woman with dark hair and quick eyes. When her sensors showed her 50 hostile ships approaching, she did not panic. She had trained for this moment for 2 years. Contact the colony, she ordered. Tell them to activate emergency shelters. Then send a message to Fleet Command. We have visitors. Her communications officer sent the messages. Then he looked at her with worried eyes. Captain, there are 50 of them. We only have 3 ships, and we are not warships. Captain Santos smiled. It was not a friendly smile. We are not warships yet. Helm, bring us around. Face the enemy. Signal the Anansi and Coyote to form up on our flanks. The 3 human ships turned and began moving toward the Syndicate fleet. Captain Vorsk saw this on his sensors and laughed. The sound was harsh and cruel. Look at these fools. They are actually coming to fight us with cargo ships. This will be even easier than I thought. Sir, one of his officers said, should we demand their surrender? Destroy them and move on to the planet. The Syndicate ships opened fire. Beams of energy and waves of missiles streaked through space toward the 3 human vessels. It should have been the end. But the human ships were changing. All across the hull of the Prometheus, panels were moving. Hidden ports were opening. The fabrication bays inside were working at maximum speed, and construction robots were mounting weapons as fast as they could be made. Railguns appeared along the ship's spine. Missile launchers emerged from what had looked like cargo doors. Energy cannons extended from secret compartments. The same thing was happening to the Anansi and the Coyote. 3 fat, helpless cargo ships were transforming into 3 deadly weapons of war. And they were doing it fast. The first Syndicate missiles reached the human ships. Point defense systems that had not existed 30 seconds ago shot them down. The energy beams hit armor that was stronger than it should have been. The human ships took damage, but they kept coming. Then they fired back. Captain Vorsk watched in horror as the first volley from the human ships tore through his formation. Railgun rounds traveling at incredible speeds punched through Syndicate hulls like they were made of paper. Missiles exploded against shields and armor. Energy beams cut ships in half. In the first 60 seconds of real combat, the humans destroyed 8 Syndicate vessels. "What is happening?" Vorsk screamed. "Those are cargo ships. They cannot have weapons. The Council banned human weapons." No one had an answer for him. They were too busy dying. The battle was chaos. The Syndicate ships tried to fight back, but they had expected an easy victory. They were not prepared for this. Their formations broke apart as captains tried to escape or find cover. Some ships crashed into each other in the confusion. The 3 human vessels moved through the chaos like predators through a herd of prey. They worked together perfectly, covering each other, focusing their fire on the most dangerous targets. They fought with cold efficiency, never wasting ammunition, never making unnecessary moves. Captain Santos stood on her bridge and watched the display screens. Her ship shook as enemy fire hit the hull, but she remained calm. "Target the command ship. Let us end this quickly." The Prometheus turned toward Captain Vorsk's vessel. For a moment, the 2 ships faced each other across the void. Then the human ship fired everything it had. Vorsk had time for one final thought before his bridge exploded around him. He thought about how unfair this was. The humans were supposed to be helpless. They were supposed to be easy prey. They were not supposed to be able to do this. Then he was gone. The battle lasted 8 minutes total. When it was over, 43 Syndicate ships were destroyed. 7 had managed to escape into hyperspace, their crews screaming warnings that no one would believe. The 3 human ships were damaged, but still functioning. On the surface of Kepler 442b, the colonists came out of their shelters and looked up at the sky. They could see the distant flashes of the explosions fading away. They did not fully understand what had happened, but they knew they were safe. Captain Santos surveyed the damage to her ship. It would need repairs, but nothing critical was destroyed. The fabrication bays were already producing replacement parts. "Send a message to Fleet Command," she said. "Battle concluded. Colony secured. Enemy destroyed. The shapeshifters have proven their worth." Far away on Earth, Fleet Admiral Chen Wei received the message. He read it carefully, then leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. This was the moment they had prepared for. The moment when the galaxy would learn what humanity had built. The recordings of the battle would spread. Other species would see the transformation. They would see cargo ships become warships in minutes. They would understand that humanity was not as helpless as the Council had believed. Some would be angry. Some would be afraid. Some would demand action against the humans. But it was too late. The secret was out. And there were already over 100 shapeshifters scattered throughout human space, waiting for anyone else who thought humans were easy prey. The rules of the galaxy had just changed, and humanity had written the new rules. The recordings of the Battle of Kepler 442b spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within a week, every major species had seen them. Within a month, they were being studied in military academies on 100 worlds. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. The great hall that had witnessed humanity's humiliation 2 years ago was now filled with angry voices and fearful whispers. High Arbiter Fesix of the Vethkai Dominion stood before the assembly, his multiple eyes burning with rage. His hard shell clicked and rattled as he spoke, a sign of extreme emotion in his species. "We were deceived," he declared. "The humans promised to disarm. They signed the treaty. They let us watch as they destroyed their warships. And all the time, they were building something new, something hidden, something dangerous." The other council members murmured in agreement. Many of them had believed that the human threat was ended. Now they felt foolish and afraid. "We must act immediately," Fesix continued. "We must send a fleet to human space and demand the destruction of these new weapons. If they refuse, we must destroy the weapons ourselves, along with anyone who tries to stop us." Some council members nodded. Others looked uncertain. A few seemed truly scared. The representative from Narathi Prime, a peaceful species of scholars and scientists, raised a thin hand. "High Arbiter, I must ask a question. The recordings show that 3 human ships destroyed 50 attackers. How many ships would we need to defeat their entire fleet?" Fesix made a dismissive gesture. "Our reports say the humans have perhaps 100 of these transformed vessels. We can gather 200 warships from the Dominion alone. Add ships from our allies, and we will have overwhelming force." "But High Arbiter," the Narathi continued, "the human ships in the recording changed from civilian vessels to warships in minutes. How do we know how many of their civilian ships can do the same thing? According to our trade records, humanity has over 2,000 cargo ships, mining vessels, and other civilian craft. What if they can all transform?" The hall went silent. No one had thought about this. Fesix recovered quickly. "That is impossible. Building such ships must be expensive and difficult. They cannot have converted all of their vessels." "Can we be certain of that?" the Narathi asked. "Are we willing to bet our fleets on that assumption?" The debate continued for days. In the end, the council decided to send a fleet anyway. Not to attack, they claimed, but to demonstrate strength. To show humanity that the council would not be ignored. 200 warships gathered at the edge of human space. They came from 6 different species, all united against the human threat. Vethkai dreadnoughts formed the core of the fleet, but there were also fast cruisers from the Turani Empire, heavy battleships from the Meketh Collective, and dozens of smaller vessels from other member species. High Arbiter Fesix commanded the fleet personally. This would be his moment of triumph. He would force the humans to surrender their new weapons. He would restore the Council's authority. He would be remembered as a hero. The fleet jumped to hyperspace and emerged at the edge of the Sol System, humanity's home territory. What they found there stopped them cold. Earth hung in space, blue and white and beautiful. But it was not alone. Orbiting the human homeworld were 300 vessels of various sizes. Cargo ships, mining vessels, passenger liners, research stations, all of them broadcasting civilian transponder codes, all of them potential warships. A human transmission came through on all channels. The voice was calm and professional. "This is Fleet Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Adaptive Navy. You have entered sovereign human space with an armed fleet. We request that you state your intentions and submit to standard customs inspection." Fesix felt his rage building again. The human was mocking him, treating an armada of 200 warships like ordinary visitors. He opened a channel to respond. "Human Commander, you know why we are here. Your ships are weapons of war. You have violated the Treaty of Nexus Prime. You will surrender your vessels for dismantling, or you will be dismantled with them." There was a pause before the human replied. When he spoke, Fesix could hear something in his voice. It took a moment to recognize it as amusement. "High Arbiter, I believe you are confused. The Treaty of Nexus Prime banned human warships. We do not have any warships. Check your records. Every vessel you see is registered as a civilian ship. mining platforms, cargo haulers, passenger transports, all perfectly legal. "They are weapons," Fesix shouted. "We have seen the recordings. Your ships transform into warships." "Our ships have robust self-defense capabilities," Chen Wei replied. "This is not the same thing as being warships. The treaty bans weapons designed for war. Our ships are designed for civilian purposes. They simply have the ability to defend themselves when attacked. There is nothing in the treaty that forbids this. Word games, legal tricks, you cannot escape responsibility through clever language. Perhaps. But here is the reality, High Arbiter." Chen Wei's voice became harder, losing its amusement. "I have 300 civilian vessels. Based on our performance at Kepler 442b, each of my ships can destroy at least 4 of yours. The mathematics are not in your favor." Fesix wanted to order an attack. His mandibles clicked with frustrated anger, but he was not a fool. He had studied the battle recordings carefully. He knew what the human ships could do. And the human had made a good point. If all 300 ships around Earth could transform, his fleet would be destroyed. "What do you want?" Fesix asked finally. "I want you to turn your fleet around and go home," Chen Wei said. "I want you to recommend to the Council that humanity be accepted as a full member with all rights and privileges. No more restrictions. No more observers. No more treating us like children who cannot be trusted. And if we refuse, then we will defend our home. And after we destroy your fleet, we will come to the Council ourselves and make our demands in person." I do not think the Council wants that. It would be very embarrassing for everyone involved. The silence stretched for a long moment. Fesix looked at his tactical displays. The human ships were not moving, not threatening. They were just waiting. But he could imagine what would happen if he gave the order to attack. His fleet would die, and humanity would be angry. "This is not over," Fesix said finally. "The Council will not forget this insult." "I would be disappointed if they did," Chen Wei replied. "Safe travels, High Arbiter. I hope we can meet again under better circumstances." The 200 Council ships turned and left human space without firing a single shot. It was the greatest humiliation in Vethkai history. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Chen Wei allowed himself a small smile. The first phase was complete. Now it was time for the politicians to finish the job. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was already on her way to the Council chamber. She carried a proposal for humanity's full membership. It was very reasonable, very fair, and the Council would accept it, because now they understood something important. They could not stop humanity. They could only negotiate with them. The young species from the third planet had grown up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Council summit lasted 3 weeks. Every day, representatives from hundreds of species gathered to debate what should be done about the humans. Every night, they returned to their quarters more confused and frustrated than before. Ambassador Elena Vasquez attended every session. She sat in the human delegation seats and listened patiently to all the arguments against her people. She heard speakers call humanity dangerous, deceptive, and untrustworthy. She heard demands for punishment and sanctions. She heard threats of war. She also noticed that fewer species joined in these demands each day. The reason was simple. While the politicians talked, business people were counting money. Humanity's fabrication technology, the same technology that powered the shapeshifter ships, had become essential to the galactic economy over the past 2 years. Human factories could make almost anything faster and cheaper than traditional methods. Dozens of worlds had become dependent on human-made goods. Hundreds of companies had signed contracts with human suppliers. Thousands of jobs throughout the galaxy relied on continued trade with humanity. Sanctions against humanity would hurt everyone. War with humanity would be even worse. The Vethkai representative tried to hold the coalition together. We cannot let fear of economic loss prevent us from doing what is right, he argued. The humans have made fools of us all. They must be punished. But other species were no longer listening. The Tyranni Empire announced that they would not participate in any military action against humanity. The Mecheth Collective said the same. One by one, the allies that had seemed so united fell away. On the 15th day of the summit, Ambassador Vasquez requested permission to address the full council. It was the first time she had spoken since the meetings began. She walked to the center of the Great Hall and looked up at the thousands of faces watching her. There was no fear in her eyes, no anger, only calm confidence. Distinguished members of the council, she began, I have listened to your debates with great interest. I have heard many opinions about what humanity has done wrong. Now I would like to offer a different perspective. 2 years ago, you ordered my people to destroy our warships. You said this was necessary for galactic peace. We accepted your decision. We followed your rules. We did everything you asked of us. But you did not ask us to become helpless. You did not ask us to leave ourselves open to attack. And as you have seen, we did not do those things. She paused, letting her words sink in. The ships you are so afraid of are not warships. They are not designed for conquest or aggression. They are designed for one purpose only, to protect human lives. When pirates attacked our colony, our ships defended it. When your fleet came to threaten our homeworld, our ships stood ready to defend it. In both cases, humanity did not start the conflict. We only finished it. The Vethkai representative stood up. You planned this from the beginning. You knew we would try to disarm you, and you prepared a way around our restrictions. That is deception. Elena turned to face him directly. High Arbiter, may I ask you a question? If your species had been forced to disarm, would you have accepted weakness and hoped your enemies would be kind, or would you have found a way to protect yourselves within the rules that were given to you? Thesix did not answer. He could not. Every species in the council knew that they would have done exactly what humanity had done. Elena continued. You studied our technology and feared our weapons. You analyzed our tactics and feared our aggression. But you never bothered to study our history. She spread her hands, including everyone in the Great Hall in her gesture. We spent 10,000 years trying to conquer each other. Generation after generation, war after war. Every time one group thought it had won, another found a way around their defenses. Every time someone built a wall, someone else built a ladder. Every time someone banned a weapon, someone invented a new one. Her voice grew stronger. You told us we could not build warships, so we built ships that are not warships until they need to be. You thought you were protecting yourselves from us. All you really did was force us to become more creative. She smiled, and there was something sharp in that smile, something dangerous. This is what humanity does. This is who we are. We adapt, we overcome, we find a way. You cannot stop this. No one has ever been able to stop this. The best you can do is work with us instead of against us. The council voted the next day. It was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity was granted full membership with all rights and privileges. The restrictions of the Treaty of Nexus Prime were lifted. Human ships would no longer be monitored or inspected by council observers. High Arbiter Thesix voted against the decision. He left the council chamber in anger and refused to speak to any human representative. His hatred of humanity would remain until his death many years later. But most species accepted the new reality. Some even welcomed it. The Narathi Prime delegate approached Ambassador Vasquez after the vote and offered congratulations. You played a long game, he said, and you played it well. Elena shook his hand, a human gesture of friendship. We had no choice. Your council gave us only 2 options, submit or resist. We chose to resist in a way that you could not prevent. What happens now? Now we move forward together. Humanity does not want to conquer the galaxy. We never did. We only wanted to be treated as equals. We wanted to protect ourselves. We wanted to have a voice. She looked around the great hall, at the thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. There is room for cooperation. There is room for trade. There is room for friendship. But there is no room for one species to rule over another. This is the lesson we hoped the Council would learn. In the years that followed, humanity became one of the most important members of the galactic community. Human technology spread to every corner of known space. Human ships traveled freely, their civilian appearance hiding the potential for deadly force. Human ambassadors helped negotiate peace between species that had been enemies for thousands of years. The shapeshifters remained. They multiplied. They improved. Every few years a new generation of adaptive response vessels was launched from human shipyards, each more capable than the last. No one ever attacked human space again. The pirates and raiders learned to avoid human shipping lanes. The hostile empires learned to negotiate instead of threaten. Even the Vethkai, who never forgave humanity for their humiliation, kept their hatred locked inside and never acted on it. Because everyone understood the truth. You could not defeat humanity by taking away their weapons. You could only make them create better weapons. You could not control humanity by writing rules against them. You could only make them find clever ways around those rules. The humans had proven something important to the galaxy. Something that would be remembered